today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Another look at the ongoing feud that Clarissa Shields started. What she spent yesterday doing. A Twitter user that goes by the name Clenbuterol Plugs said, "Man, what the hell are you guys talking about? Respectfully, no one tuned in because of them. It was because of Mike Tyson."
To which Clarissa Shields responded after retweeting the tweet, "They're crazy as hell."
Another Twitter user that goes by the name Thrill Boxing Magazine said, "Well, maybe it was because it was on Netflix. A Mike Tyson and Jake Paul card, LOL. He's acting like they headlined it."
Who's he?
Cameron, after he exposed Clarissa Shields for direct messaging him to throw shade at Katie and Amanda.
Clarissa quote tweeted this tweet saying, "Facts," with several exclamation points, saying, "That boy Cam, stupid."
No, you're just embarrassed, because when you direct messaged him, you didn't think he would air you out. You didn't think he would expose you. Amanda Serrano reacted to everything that was happening yesterday with little more than an emoji, to which Clarissa responded, "You're making this face because facts are facts." Is this Clarissa's version of being happy for Katie and Amanda? Is this how she quote-unquote loves them and supports them?
Having seen enough, Amanda Serrano responded to Clarissa by saying, "Facts are facts. When your numbers came out as 2 million, no one commented about it. Now those numbers are smashed and you're upset. How do we make women's boxing grow if that's truly the goal for you? If it bothers you that someone else does good, we fought our asses off to elevate the game. I fought with a gruesome cut. To show the world that we women can and do belong on the big stage, not to prove that I'm better than anyone. You and I are real different and want different, hun. That's obvious." To which Clarissa responded, "Pause, baby. I'm not upset. You guys wasn't a standalone women's event. Doesn't take away from the fact that you guys added women's boxing and brought in the view. I'm happy for you guys. Keep going, champion. Keep breaking records."
She is such a phony.
"We are very different, quote-unquote, hun. You are different. When you're fighting, Katie and Amanda don't have to sit online, sit on social media, sneak dissing, taking shots at you,
reaching out to celebrities and musicians to make themselves feel better. They don't have to do any of that shit you do."
That is where you're different. Clarissa's argument seems to be that because Katie and Amanda weren't the headliners of that card, they can hardly take any credit for how many people tuned in. As if that changes that 74 million people during the live broadcast were watching that fight.
That's what makes it the most watched women's boxing match in the history of sports.
More watched than anything Clarissa has done so far, more watched than anything she will do. But if what you're saying is they can't take credit for how many people tuned in because those people weren't all tuning in for her, what the hell makes you think all those 2 million people were tuning in for you?
Huh?
The 2 million people you're talking about, the viewing figures from Sky Sports, a British network.
Do you think all those Brits were tuning in to see you? The majority of them, or half of them, even half. You think they were tuning in for you?
They were tuning in for Savannah. If you were anywhere as big a draw as you pretend to be, you wouldn't have had to fly to the UK to box on a British network. You would have been able to bring Savannah to you, but you didn't.
Because you couldn't.
If you were anywhere as big a draw as you pretend to be, then why did Showtime end their relationship with you?
If you were anywhere as big a draw as you pretend to be, why didn't your pay-per-view with Marie-Eve DeCare sell?
If you were anywhere near as big a draw as you pretend to be, why are you stuck talking about the viewing figures for a fight 2 years ago?
A lot has happened since then.
Katie Taylor, she had not one, but 2 homecoming fights in her native Ireland. Both events were very big events. Amanda Serrano, she managed to sell out a stadium in Puerto Rico, and if not for the injury, the fight would have went through. She sold out an entire stadium.
This is all without them fighting each other.
2 years after their initial meeting. Now, 2 years after your initial meeting with Savannah Marshall, what the hell have you done besides throw shade at Amanda?
Try to get Cameron Giles to help you out.
Whilst claiming you're so happy for them, you love them.
Bullshit.
Clarissa Shields said, "God don't like ugly, ain't too fond of cute. Y'all better get right with God. I'm protected and still winning."
Still jealous.
To which Shakur Stevenson responded, "Like you've been for years. They don't do none but make you stronger, champ."
Who's they? She started this.
What is he doing? Making her out to be the victim over a feud that she started? She's jealous. None of the behaviors that she's exhibited in the subsequent days that have followed that fight could be mistaken with being happy for someone, what someone does when they're happy for someone else. She's clearly not happy and trying to goad Amanda Serrano into an argument.
You say that God don't like ugly, but you're the ugly one. Ugly inside and out.
Repulsive.
Repugnant.
She's gotta have some kind of a personality disorder that she's willing to go to these lengths to get attention and steal someone else's thunder. So often, her childhood issues and childhood trauma are brought up as justification. But it's nobody's fault that you had a shitty childhood.
So what?
What Shakur Stevenson represents when he tries to make her out to be the victim in a feud that she started is that vocal minority that seems to think she's supposed to get a pass for whatever she does, no matter how dysfunctional it is, out of some misguided sense of community.
Oh, is this you staying on code?
Tell you what, I don't give a shit about you or your code. This is a bit more than being a glory hog. She's really outdone herself if you're downgrading the impact of Taylor versus Serrano 2, saying that all those people just happened to be there. They just happened to see it. Why did Netflix pay so much money for it then? More than you've ever made, perhaps more than you'll ever make.
An estimated $12 million pot, $6 million apiece split between Amanda and Katie. You don't make that kind of dough. If you're the face of boxing, why ain't you getting that?
Why did Netflix pay it out if it's just an undercard fight? Just an undercard fight like any undercard fight. If I didn't know better, I'd say that Netflix knew it was a big fight and they were willing to pay to play because of how big it was.
Do you see a lot of women's boxing matches with a $12 million pot? Women boxers making $6 million for a single fight?
Well, that clearly wasn't your run-of-the-mill undercard fight, your run-of-the-mill co-main event, as Clarissa would have you believe, who is beside herself with jealousy, green with envy.
She always is.
She can't handle another woman boxer or women boxers being praised for what they're doing and their contributions. She believes that's all supposed to go to her.
And while there's a sort of vocal minority online that loves to egg her on and enable these behaviors.
If she was what you guys say she is, she never would have got dropped from Showtime. She never would have flopped on pay-per-view. She wouldn't have had to fly to the UK for her biggest payday. She would have been able to get it here, in America.
Well, she had to fly out to the UK because she can't sell out a bingo hall in America.
You're still stuck on a fight that happened 2 years ago in the United Kingdom.
So how many more fights like that have you got?
Not a lot, which is why she has so much time on her hands. So much time to sit online, taking shots at Amanda.
Who's never been nothing but nice to her.
She shouldn't be, because Clarissa is a jealous piece of shit.
A hateful, envious, repulsive,
repugnant, self-absorbed piece of shit.
She always has been.
She's outdone herself this time, though, because now more and more people are starting to realize that they're seeing the pattern. They've seen it enough that she can't feel better about herself unless she's tearing somebody else down. Men's Bridgerweight news. Newly crowned WBC champion Kevin Lerena offers Jake Paul a shot at his WBC Bridgerweight title. WBC belt holder Kevin Lerena has offered Jake Paul a shot at his Bridgerweight title after the YouTube star's 8-round victory over a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. Paul faced off with Tyson on Friday in one of the most highly anticipated boxing events of the last decade, and subsequently, millions tuned in around the world. Tyson looked every bit of his age on fight night, and it seemed as though the 27-year-old could have ended the contest at any minute. Lerena, training out of Malta as part of Tyson Fury's training camp for his December 21st rematch with Oleksandr Usyk, is one of them. Listen, the event was phenomenal, Lerena told Boxing Scene. Obviously, the fight didn't live up to the hype, but we all need to step outside of the bubble and realize if it was ever going to live up to the hype. You know, Iron Mike Tyson, he's 58. Jake Paul's in his prime. It was a mismatch in the sense of youth versus experience. But the event was great. I tuned in to watch, and I think you've got to commend the guy for what he's done. He's got the whole people sitting on their ass, watching the boxing, and that's what it's all about.
You draw more flies with honey.
You will notice that of all the bona fide professionals and active champions calling out Jake Paul, Kevin Lerena decided to take a more diplomatic approach than they did.
Pay attention.
I think he wants to legitimize his career in terms of who he fights, and he's obviously looking for step-ups, Lerena continued. I'm not saying Mike Tyson wasn't a step-up, but he's an older man who's got health problems, who was ferocious, vicious fighter in his prime and in his heyday, but we can't take away the fact that he's older now. Lerena posted a video on social media before Paul's fight on Friday, declaring that he would be willing to offer the YouTuber a shot at his title should he beat Tyson. The WBC title holder is standing by his statement and gave an honest response when asked why he wanted to face Paul. So why I said I'd fight Jake Paul, he replied, like every other fighter who's jumping on the bandwagon, for me at least, it's going to be the biggest payday of my career up until now, should we fight. I mean, I cannot lie, but I kind of come from a similar background in the sense that I've had no amateur fights. I've only had professional fights. I've managed to achieve what I've achieved in these 34 fights up until now with virtually no experience. So, if Jake Paul wants to fight legitimate fighters and you've got a world champion who's giving him a shot, who's also got little experience compared to the other professional boxers, then it's a no-brainer.
What's that bring the head count to? How many active reigning champions have offered Jake Paul a title shot? You've got Kevin Lerena.
You have Artur Beterbiev at 175 pounds, Noel Mikhailian at cruiserweight, Kevin Lerena at bridgerweight, and Daniel Dubois at heavyweight.
Wow.
How would I benefit? Well, yes, I'm fighting one of the biggest social media YouTube influencers, and now you've got to say boxing stars because you're in the boxing world, so I'll probably get the biggest payday I've ever fought in. How would I benefit? Well, should he lose to Kevin Lerena, people will say he lost to a legitimate fighter, a world champion. Carry on, Jake. Should he beat me, well, then he's the real deal. I don't see him beating me. I think I'll smash him over, but you can't say he's not legitimate. Lerena continued. He takes his craft seriously. He moved to Puerto Rico. He's got a good team behind him. He's doing all the right things and giving himself the best chance to be the best professional boxer he can be. So, there are two ways here. He benefits, he gets a world title shot, I benefit, I get to fight one of the biggest stars in boxing. And no fighter can tell me that they don't want to fight Jake Paul for the payday. They just want to fight him because they don't like him. Shut up. We're in the sport of making the most we can in a very short space of time. And these are the fights that make the most money.
I respect Kevin Lerena's honesty.
He's not pretending to stand up for the integrity and the virtue of the sport. Quite the opposite. He's addressing the realities of it. That as a pro boxer, you only got a limited amount of time to make as much money as you can. So if that means cashing out with Jake Paul, that's just what the hell that means. Lerena is not the only professional boxer to throw his name into the hat to face Jake. Retired former world champion Carl Froch and undisputed light heavyweight champion Artur Beterbiev have taken to social media this week to try and entice Paul to fight. Lerena believes if some of the biggest stars in the sport can call out Paul, then why can't he? I mean, you even had a 140-pounder, a 135-pounder in Gervonta Davis saying he would fight Jake Paul. He said, you had the ex-fighters, former world champions like Tony Bellew saying he'd fight him. Artur Beterbiev mentioned it. I mean, come on. The guy's a big enough star for those names to mention him. We're all going to try to jump onto the bandwagon, but I make the most sense for him. I'm giving him a world title shot at a weight that he can make. He's not fighting a guy that weighs 150 pounds, he continued. He's not fighting a Conor McGregor who's at 170 or 180 or whatever it is. A guy who's at 220 for a legitimate world title, as Tyson Fury and I were talking about yesterday. For him, it makes sense. I'm giving him the opportunity. I'm bringing the green and gold to the table, and he's bringing that cash money to the table and a massive presence in the sport of boxing. I think you've got to respect both parties.
Well, I respect Kevin's honesty, but I don't actually think it's Jake's intention to become a legitimate world champion in the sport. It's just not realistic. What he can do is use that as a marketing angle to continue to sell his events and ruffle people's feathers, but I don't actually think he's serious about fighting for a title.
One problem regarding a bout between Lerena and Paul is that the YouTuber is currently not ranked with the WBC, although President Mauricio Suleiman did specify before the fight that Paul was ready to be entered into the ratings committee. I don't think it will be a problem, said Lerena. If Mauricio Suleiman said that should he beat Tyson, he'll be able to get a WBC ranking at the end of the day, you've got to say he's had 11 or 12 fights. there are guys at Bridgerweight who are rated that I think Jake Paul could beat. At least 80% of them, to be honest.
Well, that says more about Bridgerweight than it says about Jake.
I'm not going to knock him. I'm being honest. I think there are 80% of fighters within Bridgerweight that I think Jake Paul would beat. So, I'm sure he could get a ranking within the Bridgerweight at least. The Bridgerweight title is still not recognized by many as a legitimate world championship after the weight division was only created in 2020. Lerena believes that the division needs a big fight, like him versus Paul, to bring more eyes to the weight class. It's a new division, Lerena said, but I think it's a tantalizing fight because it creates big awareness for the WBC around the new weight division, and it's two big men, 220 pounds going at each other, and what Bridgerweight needs. Yes, I'm the champion now.
But what is it really worth to be a Bridgerweight champion?
We all want the big fights, right? So in a perfect world, Lerena versus Deontay Wilder is a massive Bridgerweight fight. Should he want to come down and fight at Bridgerweight, or Lerena versus Usyk, or whatever it is. A belt or weight division, call it Super Cruiserweight or Bridgerweight, is made on who fights for the belt and the magnitude of the fight. Truthfully, when Cruiserweight came out many years back, it needed a bit of traction, and it eventually got that traction. It's all about who fights for the belt that makes the fight exciting and makes the belt be recognized more and more as time goes on.
I didn't realize Kevin Lerena was such a level-headed guy, a smart guy, albeit a cockeyed optimist, because you would have to be to think that Jake Paul is going to run the gauntlet with you. Understand that Kevin is a good fighter. He is a high risk and a low reward for a lot of bona fide professionals. Why do you think Lawrence Okolie decided to vacate the WBC Bridgerweight title? Because he knew fighting Kevin as is mandatory is more trouble than it's worth.
You saw what he did to Daniel Dubois when they fought, and you saw that in the Justice Hooney fight. He gave Justice Hooney a few issues, so that if a guy like Jake Paul goes in there with him, it's a sure bet Jake's getting knocked out.
Jake doesn't want an alphabet title that bad right now, if ever, that he's going to give Kevin Lerena a shot.
Kevin's logic is sound, but I would sooner expect Jake to fight with Ryan Garcia, who's noticeably smaller, than run risks against somebody his own size who can fight.
Didn't he fight Tommy Fury?
That's exactly what I mean. You couldn't win a decision against Tommy Fury. You're definitely not making it to the cards with Kevin Lerena.